I always thought moving into Willow Creek would give us peace. Clean lawns, quiet nights, and neighbors who waved while walking their dogs. That kind of suburban dream. But I was wrong. Because where there's an HOA, there's always a Karen. And ours was the queen of them all, Karen Doyle, the self-proclaimed guardian of community standards. She had a clipboard in one hand and a camera in the other, policing everything from mailbox colors to the direction your trash cans faced. At first, she just sent us little warnings. Your grass is half an inch too tall. Your fence shade is 2 tones darker than regulation beige. We laughed it off. My wife, Dana Ross, said it best. Some people need to feel in control to hide how powerless they are. She was calm, grounded, a federal agent with the Department of Homeland Security, used to handling chaos far worse than HOA politics. But then one afternoon, everything changed. Dana came home after a 16-hour shift. She parked her black Suburban in the driveway, still wearing her tactical vest and DHS badge. She just grabbed the mail when Karen spotted her from across the street. I saw it all happen from the porch. The way Karen's eyes narrowed, how her nose tilted up like she'd sniffed something offensive. Within seconds, she was marching over, clipboard swinging at her side. Excuse me, miss, she said, voice dripping with authority she didn't have. This is a private neighborhood. Costumes aren't appropriate for public display. Halloween's over. Dana blinked, still half exhausted. Ma'am, this isn't a costume, she replied. Karen smirked, the kind of smirk only self-righteous people can perfect. Right, she said. And I'm the Queen of England. You can't just pretend to be a federal officer. That's a felony, you know. Dana sighed and walked past her. Have a good evening, ma'am. But Karen wasn't done. She pulled out her phone and started snapping pictures in night of the badge, the car, even the license plate. You'll be hearing from the HOA, she shouted as Dana went inside. That night, Dana laughed it off. Your HOA queen just tried to report me for existing, she said, kicking off her boots. I laughed too. I shouldn't have. Because 3 days later, it wasn't the HOA that showed up at our door. It was a county sheriff's deputy. He was polite, almost apologetic. He explained that a complaint had been filed claiming a woman in our neighborhood was impersonating a federal officer. Dana showed her credentials. Real DHS identification, agency letters, everything. Within minutes, he realized it was legitimate. He even said, sorry for the inconvenience, ma'am. Some people don't know when to mind their business. But the damage was done. By evening, everyone knew. Curtains twitched when we stepped outside. Neighbors whispered. Some crossed the street instead of greeting us. And through it all, Karen strutted around like she'd uncovered a scandal. That weekend, things escalated. Dana was leaving for work again, wearing her gear, when Karen appeared, this time with 2 other HOA members in tow. They stood on our lawn, filming her like a pack of vultures. You can't park government vehicles on private property. One shouted. You're intimidating residents. Karen added. It's disgusting pretending to serve the country while lying to your neighbors. Dana turned to them, calm as ever. Ma'am, you're trespassing. Step off my property, Karen laughed. You don't get to order me around, fake cop. I'm the HOA president. That's when Dana unclipped her badge, lifted it, and held it up. The golden seal of the Department of Homeland Security caught the morning light. The silence that followed was heavy. Karen's smirk faltered. Her camera lowered slightly. You can't just buy one of those online. She stammered. This one's not from Amazon, Dana said coolly. You can verify it. Karen's face flushed red. She turned on her heel and stormed off, muttering under her breath. That night, I thought it was over. But Karen wasn't done. At 2 a.m., Dana's phone rang, her work line. I woke up to the sound of her whispering, then freezing. When she hung up, her face was pale. They called my office, she said quietly. She reported me to the Inspector General, claimed I falsified credentials and brought unauthorized weapons into the neighborhood. That's when I snapped. She's going too far, Dana. You can't let this slide. But Dana, ever the professional, just said, let her play her little game. I'll handle it. The next morning, she didn't take her Suburban to work. She left with backup. 3 black SUVs rolled into Willow Creek, parking right in front of Karen's house. Neighbors peeked through blinds, phones recording. Dana stepped out in her official uniform, flanked by 2 other agents. She walked up to Karen's front door and knocked, calm and steady. Karen answered in her robe, clutching a mug that said, HOA boss. When she saw the agents, she froze. What's going on? She stammered. Dana handed her a sealed envelope. "Official notice," she said. "You filed a false federal complaint. That's obstruction and misuse of emergency channels." Karen blinked, her face turning pale. I didn't know you were actually—" "That's the problem," Dana interrupted. "You never ask. You just accuse." Then she leaned closer, her voice calm but sharp. "And for the record, if you ever threaten my husband or my job again, I'll handle it through the bureau." She turned and walked back to the SUV, her badge glinting in the sunlight. The engines rumbled to life and the 3 black vehicles rolled down the street, leaving Karen trembling on her porch, clutching her coffee mug with shaking hands. That day, the entire neighborhood changed. People who once ignored us suddenly smiled and waved. Some even apologized. Karen, meanwhile, vanished from HOA meetings for weeks. For a while, everything was peaceful. But peace doesn't last long when someone like Karen's pride is wounded. I should have known she wouldn't stop there. Because when people like her feel humiliated, they don't let it go, they plan. And the way she planned her revenge this time would drag us both into something far bigger than an HOA dispute. For a few quiet weeks, life in Willow Creek almost felt normal again. The gossip faded, neighbors smiled again, and Karen's house stayed dark most evenings. She stopped patrolling the neighborhood with her clipboard and seemed to have finally learned her lesson. Even the HOA meeting announcements came from someone new, a timid woman named Claire, who apologized for the previous unfortunate misunderstandings. Dinah seemed relieved. I could tell she wanted peace more than anything. She'd spent years working in tense environments, but at home she wanted calm, a space that felt safe. She spent her mornings in the garden, trimming her roses, humming softly. The kind of peace that only comes when you think the storm is over. But storms have a way of circling back. It started small. Anonymous letters in our mailbox, printed in bold capital letters. "We don't want people like you here." At first, I thought it was leftover hostility, some cowardly neighbor still bitter about the confrontation. Dana shrugged it off. "Let it go," she said. "I've dealt with worse threats in the field, but I noticed something else. Every time Dana left for work, someone followed her. A gray sedan parked 2 houses down, leaving just seconds after she did. The same car would return an hour later. I wrote down the plate number once. When I ran it through a contact I knew at the county office, the registration came up under a name I recognized instantly. Karen Doyle. That night I confronted her. I walked up to her door, camera in hand, recording. She opened it just a crack, eyes wide and face pale. "Karen," I said, "and stop following my wife." "I know it's you." She looked genuinely nervous. "I don't know what you're talking about," she said quickly. "You're harassing me." "Then maybe the sheriff would like to see your car parked outside my house every morning." I shot back. Her expression changed, not fear anymore, but something darker. "You're making a mistake," she whispered and closed the door. When I walked away, I noticed something new. Her front porch had a new security camera installed, not just a regular one, but a high-end motion tracking model. It followed me as I walked down the street, blinking red. That was the first time I felt it. The shift. Karen wasn't just angry anymore. She was planning something. Over the next few days, things got worse. Packages began arriving at our doorstep, all addressed to Dana, all with fake return names. Inside were random items, handcuffs, police patches, even fake ID laminates. Karen was setting something up, something meant to make Dana look guilty. Then came the meeting notice. A new HOA meeting, mandatory attendance for all homeowners. The topic? Community safety and fraud prevention. Dana didn't want to go. "It's bait," she said. Let her rant to herself, but I insisted. "No, if we don't show up, it'll look like we're hiding." So that Friday evening we went. The clubhouse was packed. Every seat was filled, and the air buzzed with curiosity. Karen sat at the front of the room, wearing her smug smile again, a neat stack of papers in front of her. She tapped the microphone twice, testing it. "Good evening, everyone," she began, voice dripping with fake professionalism. "Tonight we'll be addressing a very serious issue, protecting our community from fraud and criminal impersonation." My stomach dropped. Dana sat next to me, silent but alert, her jaw tightening. Karen continued. "Recently, an individual within this neighborhood was caught impersonating a federal officer. We've submitted evidence to the local authorities and the Department of Homeland Security." Gasps filled the room. Dana stood up slowly. That's a lie, she said, her voice firm. Karen smiled sweetly. Is it? Because I happen to have photographic evidence and witness statements. She turned toward a projector. Suddenly photos appeared on the screen. Grainy images of Dana's badge, her vest, her car. This woman, Karen said, has been parading around as a federal agent. But as you can see, many of these credentials appear inconsistent with authentic government issue. Dana's voice was calm, but sharp. That's because those photos were taken illegally on private property. Karen leaned forward, triumph in her eyes. Then prove me wrong. Show us your authorization, your federal ID, the room murmured. I could see phones recording. This was exactly what Karen wanted. A spectacle. Dana pulled out her ID wallet, flipped it open, and placed it on the table. The golden seal glimmered under the fluorescent lights. Karen's smirk faltered slightly out, but she recovered fast. How convenient, she said, that this time you remembered to bring it. Before Dana could respond, 2 uniformed officers entered the room. The crowd went silent. Karen's smile widened. Perfect timing, she said. Officers, this is the woman impersonating federal authority. Please check her credentials. The officers approached Dana. One of them took her ID, examined it carefully, then glanced at his partner. He turned to Karen and said, Ma'am, this is a legitimate federal credential. You just made a false report. The color drained from Karen's face. No, that can't be right, she said. I saw. Dana stood, her voice low but powerful. You filed a federal-level complaint against a federal officer. That's obstruction and harassment, again. The room buzzed with whispers. Karen looked around, desperate for support, but no one spoke. The officers handed Dana's ID back respectfully. Sorry for the trouble, ma'am, one said. Dana nodded and turned to leave, but Karen wasn't done. She lunged for the microphone. You think this is over? She shouted. You think flashing a badge scares me? You're a fraud, both of you. Her voice echoed as Dana and I walked out. Outside, the night air was cool, quiet, but I could hear Karen's voice still inside, cracking with anger and humiliation. By the time we reached home, Dana's work phone buzzed again. She checked the message and frowned. They've opened a new file, she said softly. Someone sent a tip to the bureau claiming I'm leaking federal information. I froze. Karen? Dana nodded. She's escalating, and this time she's crossed into federal territory, which means... Her eyes turned cold, focused, which means she just put herself on my radar, officially. That was the moment I realized it. The setup was complete. Karen wasn't just trying to embarrass Dana anymore. She wanted her destroyed. But what Karen didn't understand was that she'd just declared war on someone who fought real ones for a living. And when Dana strikes back, she doesn't miss. The night after the HOA meeting, the neighborhood felt different. Quiet, but not peaceful. The kind of quiet you get right before a storm. Dana barely spoke on the drive home. She just stared out the window, her jaw tight, the reflection of passing streetlights cutting across her face like flashes of anger she was trying to hold back. When we pulled into the driveway, she finally spoke. You know what the difference is between Karen and me? She said softly. She plays games. High play operations. I didn't fully understand what she meant until the next morning. At sunrise, Dana was already up, sitting at the kitchen table with her laptop open and a mug of black coffee beside her. She was logged into a secure federal portal, her ID badge resting next to the keyboard. When I walked in, she didn't even look up. I'm filing a report, she said. A proper one this time. A report on Karen? I asked. She nodded. She filed a false federal complaint. That's obstruction. And sending that fake tip to the bureau? That's wire fraud. I'm documenting every instance. For hours, she worked in silence, uploading screenshots, saving files, cross-referencing complaint numbers. She was meticulous, unstoppable, methodical. I'd seen that look before. I'm back when she worked undercover. The look of someone who's done playing defense. By noon, she stood, stretched her shoulders, and smiled faintly. It's done, she said. Now we wait. I thought that meant waiting for some bureaucratic process to unfold. But Dana had something else in mind. The next evening, she came home with a small duffel bag and an expression that said everything without a word. We're going to an HOA meeting tomorrow, she said. I frowned. Another one? After what she did? She smiled, a slow, confident smile that chilled me. Oh, this one won't be like the others. When the sun dipped the next day, the Willow Creek clubhouse once again filled with people. The turnout was bigger this time. Everyone had heard about the chaos from the last meeting. Karen was there, of course, front and center, chin held high, pretending like she hadn't nearly been arrested for a false report 2 weeks ago. But when Dana walked in, every head turned. She wasn't in uniform. This time she wore a simple black blazer, jeans, and her DHS badge clipped visibly to her belt. Calm, collected, in control. Karen forced a smile. "Well, if it isn't our neighborhood celebrity," she said loudly enough for the room to hear. "Here to intimidate us again, Agent Ross?" Dana didn't answer. She simply sat down in the front row, directly facing her. The silence that followed was tense, almost electric. Karen began the meeting, droning on about community safety and accountability. But midway through, Dana raised her hand. "Before we go further," she said evenly, "I'd like to address something." Karen rolled her eyes. "This isn't your platform, Dana." Dana stood up. "Actually, under HOA bylaws, homeowners have the right to present documentation relevant to the community's well-being. And what I have here," she said, pulling a thick folder from her bag, "concerns the misuse of HOA authority." Murmurs filled the room. Karen froze for a second, but then laughed nervously. "You can't just bring—" "Sit down, Karen," Dana interrupted, voice steady but commanding. "You've talked enough." And for the first time, Karen actually did. Dana opened the folder. Inside were printed copies of emails, complaint logs, and screenshots. "Over the past 2 months," she began, "the HOA president, Karen Doyle, has filed 3 false police reports, 2 anonymous federal complaints, and distributed defamatory material about a federal employee." She turned a page. "She also stalked my property using her vehicle, license plate verified, and placed fraudulent packages on my doorstep." The room went silent. Karen's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. "That's ridiculous. You can't prove any of that." Dana smiled faintly. "Actually, I can." She turned toward the side door. "Agent Hernandez, would you come in, please?" The door opened and a man in a dark suit entered, another DHS agent. The badge flashed as he approached the podium. "Good evening," he said, his tone formal but calm. "I'm here on behalf of the Department of Homeland Security's Office of Professional Responsibility. We've been reviewing reports of fraudulent activity involving federal impersonation and harassment." Karen's face drained of all color. "Wait, you can't just barge in here." Dana didn't look at her. "Karen, everything you've done is documented. Every call, every email, every false report. You dragged my name through the mud. Now it's your turn to answer questions." The agent nodded toward Dana. "We'll take it from here." He turned to Karen. "Ms. Doyle, you're being notified that you are under investigation for filing a false federal claim and interfering with an ongoing federal operation." The entire room gasped. Karen's hands shook. "This is a setup," she screamed. "She's lying." "She's just mad because I exposed her." Dana met her gaze calmly. "You didn't expose me. You exposed yourself." The fallout was immediate. By the next morning, Karen's porch was empty, her car gone, her house dark. Word spread fast. She had been escorted out of the neighborhood by law enforcement for questioning. The HOA board held an emergency vote to remove her as president. For the first time in months, Willow Creek felt quiet, actually quiet. No fake letters, no harassment, no gossip, just peace. But for Dana, the fight wasn't over. A few days later, she received a call from the bureau. The case against Karen had revealed something unexpected, a deeper pattern of false reports targeting other residents, all tied to Karen's personal grievances. "She's been doing this for years," Dana told me after hanging up. But this time she picked the wrong target. She smiled faintly, but there was no satisfaction in it, just a tired sort of justice. "I thought that was the end." I really did. But then, about a week later, we got a letter in the mail. No return address, just a plain white envelope with our names typed on it. Inside was a single sentence. "You think you've won, but this isn't over." I handed it to Dana. She read it once, folded it neatly, and placed it in her file. "Let her try," she said softly. "This time I'll be ready before she even moves." That night I watched her stand by the window, the faint glow of her badge catching the moonlight. There was something fierce about her. Not anger exactly, but a kind of strength that comes from being underestimated one time too many. Karen had tried to destroy her reputation, her job, her peace. But instead, she'd awakened something far more dangerous. A woman who knew exactly how to fight back, and this time, wouldn't hold back. And though Karen might have disappeared for now, I had a feeling it wasn't over. People like her don't disappear, they regroup. And when they do, they come back meaner, quieter, more desperate. Dana turned from the window and said quietly, "The next time she crosses the line, I won't just defend myself. I'll dismantle everything she hides behind." Her voice was calm, but her eyes were cold steel. And I knew then, the retaliation wasn't the end of the story. It was just the beginning of the reckoning. 2 months passed. Summer had begun to fade into early fall, and the golden leaves of Willow Creek fluttered lazily across the sidewalks. Life had returned to normal, or as close to normal as it could get after what happened. Karen was gone. Officially, she'd stepped away for personal reasons, but everyone in the neighborhood knew better. The DHS investigation had peeled back the layers of her picture-perfect suburban life, revealing a trail of harassment, falsified records, and extortion that stretched far beyond our street. She was being investigated on multiple counts of fraud, and rumor had it she was staying with her sister in another state while her lawyers scrambled for damage control. For the first time in months, Dana slept peacefully. The constant vigilance, the tension, the late-night whispers, all of it had faded. She even started tending the small garden she'd neglected, humming to herself as she watered the lavender and roses. But deep down, I could feel it, and the storm wasn't truly over. Because peace like this, in stories like ours, never lasts long. It started small. A package on our doorstep one morning. No return label, no postmark, just our address typed neatly on white paper. I was the one who found it. When I picked it up, something about it felt wrong. Too light, too deliberate. I called out to Dana, and she came to the door instantly. She didn't touch it. Instead, she stepped back, eyes narrowing. "Don't open it," she said quietly. She called her old contact at the bureau. Within 30 minutes, a black SUV pulled into the driveway. 2 agents stepped out, both in gloves and suits. They took the box carefully, scanned it, and opened it outside, revealing nothing but a small note inside. 4 words. "You should have stayed quiet." The agents exchanged looks. "We'll trace it," one of them said. Could be nothing, could be something. But Dana already knew. She didn't say it, but the look in her eyes told me everything. Karen was back. Over the next week, strange things started happening. Our mail went missing. Dana's car tires were slashed one morning. Someone spray-painted "Feds Out" on the sidewalk near our mailbox. And then one night at exactly 3:17 a.m., our doorbell camera caught something. A figure, short, wearing a hoodie, face hidden, walked up our driveway and left an envelope taped to the door. Dana reviewed the footage in silence, her jaw tightening. When she opened the envelope, it contained a single photo of her in uniform walking out of her federal building. No caption. No note, just the photo. "She's watching me," Dana whispered. That's when I saw something shift in her. Not fear, focus. The same razor-sharp intensity I'd seen the night she filed her report. "She thinks she can intimidate me?" Dana said quietly. "But this time I'm not waiting for her to make the next move." The next morning, Dana was gone before sunrise. When she returned that evening, she was in full federal gear, jacket, badge, sidearm. "I requested temporary reinstatement for field assistance," she said. "We're reopening the case. And this time I'm leading it. I didn't ask how. I didn't need to. When the government wants something done, they find a way." And Dana was one of their best. For days I watched her transform, not into the woman Karen had tried to humiliate, but into the agent she truly was, focused, unrelenting. She compiled records, reviewed footage, traced IPs from the threatening emails that had started arriving again. Each one was more personal than the last, mocking her, daring her to react. "Karen's smarter this time," Dana said one night, staring at the laptop screen. "She's hiding behind proxies, fake names, maybe even hired help. But she's leaving traces, tiny ones. And sure enough, one trace led to another. A delivery driver in a nearby city, a rented storage unit under a fake name, a car registered in a different county, but with a matching VIN to the one Karen used to drive. It was like following breadcrumbs through a maze of lies. Then came the break. One night, Dana got a call. I could only hear one side of the conversation, clipped, professional, controlled. But when she hung up, she looked at me with a look that made my stomach drop. "They found her," she said. "She's back in the city. And she's been using the HOA account to blackmail other homeowners." "Blackmail?" I asked. Dana nodded. She hacked into the HOA's internal files. Personal info, payment histories, security footage. She's been threatening people to send her money or she'd expose them. "She thinks she's untouchable." "But she's not," I said. "Not anymore," Dana replied. The operation was set 2 days later. I wasn't supposed to know the details, but Dana told me just enough. Karen was meeting someone in an abandoned commercial lot, supposedly to sell the stolen data for cash. The bureau was moving in quietly. That evening, I couldn't sleep. The air outside felt heavy, like the world was holding its breath. I kept glancing at the clock, counting the minutes. Then, around midnight, my phone buzzed. A text from Dana. "It's over." That was all it said. When she came home the next morning, she looked tired but calm. She poured herself coffee, sat down across from me, and finally spoke. "They caught her," she said. "She was there with a laptop full of HOA files and an envelope full of cash. She tried to run, but it was over before she even made it to her car." "What happens now?" I asked quietly. "She's facing federal charges. Wire fraud, harassment, false reports, extortion. She'll spend years trying to untangle herself from it, maybe decades." For a long moment, we sat in silence. Then Dana said something that stayed with me. "You know what the saddest part is?" She could have just stopped. All of this, the reports, the lies, the threats, and it didn't have to end this way. But some people can't stand not being in control. She looked down at her hands. She mistook kindness for weakness. That's her fatal flaw. Weeks passed. The trial made local news. HOA president accused of federal harassment and fraud. Neighbors whispered about it in grocery stores, at parks during morning walks. Some tried to distance themselves from her. Others claimed they always knew something was off. But for us, it wasn't about gossip anymore. It was about closure. Dana was finally free, not just from Karen, but from the shadow she'd cast over our lives. She handed back her field clearance, ready to retire from active service for good this time. One evening, we stood on our porch as the sun set behind the hills, painting the sky in amber and rose. The world felt still again. Dana took my hand. "You know," she said softly, "people like Karen, they think they're powerful because they can manipulate others. But real power isn't in control. It's in restraint. It's in knowing you could destroy someone, but choosing justice instead." I squeezed her hand. "You chose right," I said. She smiled faintly. "No," she whispered. "I just chose to end it." A month later, we received one last letter. This time it was from the Bureau, an official statement confirming the closure of the investigation. At the bottom was a note handwritten by one of Dana's old colleagues. "Case closed. You did good, Agent Ross." Dana smiled when she read it. She folded the letter, placed it in her old badge case, and locked it away in a drawer. That night, as we sat outside watching the stars, I asked her, "Do you think she'll ever come back?" Dana shook her head slowly. "No," she said. "Karen's done. Some people only have power when others are afraid of them. Once that fear's gone, so are they. And for the first time since this all began, I believed her. The reckoning was over. The peace we'd fought for, earned through fire, fear, and truth, had finally settled in, and this time it was real.